3 matches. 3 draws. 0 losses. 0 professional league. Population 525,000. Cape Verde have just qualified for the World Cup knockout rounds in their very first World Cup appearance. And they did it without losing a single game in a group that contained the reigning European champions. Here is the full story of how this happened, and why the next chapter of this story might be the most extraordinary thing this tournament has ever seen. Start at the beginning, because this story needs it. Cape Verde is an archipelago of 10 volcanic islands off the northwest coast of Africa. For most of their football history they were a footnote. No professional league. Players scattered across Europe playing for Portuguese and Dutch clubs. A national team that spent decades knocking on the door of major tournaments without ever getting through. They qualified for this World Cup, their first ever, and landed in Group H alongside Spain, Uruguay, and Saudi Arabia. In theory, 3 of those 4 teams were supposed to fight for the 2 qualification spots. Cape Verde were supposed to watch. In practice, the tournament started on June 15 in Atlanta, and Cape Verde held Spain to a 0-0 draw. Goalkeeper Vozinha made save after save. Spain hit the post. Spain had expected goals of 2.29. Cape Verde finished it without conceding once. Let that sink in. Spain are the reigning European champions. Cape Verde had never played a World Cup match before in their entire history. 6 days later they drew 2-2 with Uruguay in Miami. Uruguay went ahead. Cape Verde equalized. Uruguay scored again. Cape Verde hit back for a second time. Kevin Pina's free kick became the first goal Cape Verde had ever scored at a World Cup. A country competing in their first tournament, in their second match, equalizing against a team that has won this competition twice. The comeback alone would have been enough for most debutant nations. Cape Verde celebrated it and then immediately refocused on what was next. What was next was Saudi Arabia in Houston on Friday night. Cape Verde needed at least a draw to have any chance of advancing. Saudi Arabia needed a win to advance themselves. The match ended 0-0. Here is where it gets interesting. Cape Verde fans inside the stadium in Houston were also tracking a completely separate match happening at the same time in Guadalajara, where Spain were playing Uruguay. Every time Spain had a chance, Cape Verde fans cheered from Texas. When Spain scored in the first half, the roar inside the Houston stadium was for a goal scored in a completely different city. That is what this group stage became. Football played simultaneously across 2 countries with one tiny island nation watching both screens at once. Spain won 1-0. Uruguay were eliminated. Saudi Arabia were eliminated. And Cape Verde, ranked 67th in the world, with 3 points from 3 draws, finished second in Group H above both of those teams. Whether you like it or not, that is now a permanent fact in World Cup history. Vozinha kept his second clean sheet of the tournament against Saudi Arabia. The goalkeeper who became famous in the first match for making 7 saves against Spain. The goalkeeper whose mother could not get a visa to watch his debut. Has now kept 2 clean sheets across 3 World Cup matches. Cape Verde became only the 3rd African nation to reach the knockout rounds of a World Cup without losing a single group stage match. And now comes the part that even the writers of this story could not have invented. Cape Verde's opponent in the round of 32 on July 3 in Miami is Argentina, the defending World Cup champions. The team of Lionel Messi, who has 18 World Cup goals and has been the best player at this tournament by a distance. The same Lionel Messi who scored a hat-trick in his first match and a brace in his second. Cape Verde are going to Miami to face the most decorated player in football history, at the peak of his final World Cup, on the biggest stage this sport offers. In theory, that is an impossible fixture for a nation this size. In practice, nobody said that about Spain either. Cape Verde held Spain for 90 minutes. They held Uruguay for 90 minutes despite going behind twice. They held Saudi Arabia for 90 minutes when everything was on the line. This team does not concede easily, and they have now done it 3 times against 3 different opponents in 3 completely different match situations. You know the type of story that starts as a curiosity and slowly becomes something you cannot stop following. This is exactly that. The first ever World Cup appearance. 3 matches. 3 draws. No losses. A goalkeeper who has become a national hero. A group that included European champions and former World Cup winners. And now a date with Lionel Messi's Argentina in the knockout rounds. 525,000 people. 1 island. 1 goalkeeper. 1 extraordinary month of football that nobody predicted and nobody will forget. Cape Verde are in the round of 32. Whatever happens next, they have already made history. The rest of the tournament is a bonus. If you want every chapter of this story the moment it happens, subscribe. Because Cape Verde vs Argentina is coming, and you do not want to miss what happens next. You are welcome.